The Surge is a great example of taking a concept and expanding upon it rather than simply cloning it. Set in a sci-fi setting and with more in-depth combat than a Souls-like game, it definitely comes out with a very fresh feeling from traditional Dark Souls-like games. To start off, the story is the weakest part of The Surge. The voice acting is bad, the dialogue is lame, the characters are not very interesting. It's an interesting concept, but the execution is just not there. Worst of all, the story is mostly kind of in the background, rather than being in the forefront of the gameplay. It's basically told through audio clips that you listen to. It's set in a sort of post-apocalyptic, kind of dystopian future in which humans have more or less destroyed the planet and left it as a barren waste by using up all the resources. You play as Warren, a handicapped man who finds himself implanted into an exosuit so that he can walk again. It's sort of your typical wake up, everything's gone to crap, bad evil company kind of thing. Gameplay-wise, The Surge has more in common with Nioh than Dark Souls. It's a much more fast-paced combat requiring quick decisions and thinking. Each enemy is potentially life-threatening given the right circumstances. And there's enough enemy variety to keep the game feeling very fresh after 15 plus hours of gameplay. It's that same traditional Dark Souls-like gameplay of relying on dodging and blocks and carefully timed attacks. The bosses have a lot of interesting interactions, but they're a lot less challenging than Dark Souls. They usually rely on a certain gimmick, like stabbing the legs or something like that. Progression is where the Surge differs the most from its competitors. In the Surge, you have the option to target specific limbs of an enemy. Targeting unarmored sections, for example, gives you additional damage, while targeting an armored section allows you to build up energy, which then can be used to cut off a specific limb, and then take that armor piece. You then get a blueprint, which you can use to then craft it. Each piece of armor and weapon can be upgraded several tiers, and to actually craft the armor you need to cut off more limbs, which then gets you the parts to create it. It's a great system that really incentivizes fighting enemies and gives you a great feeling of achievement. On top of that, each enemy you kill gets you scrap, which is basically souls from the Dark Souls game, which then can be used to level up your core. Now, unlike Dark Souls, you don't level individual stats, you instead level your core, which gives you general increases across the board, but it unlocks new implant slots. Now, implants can be used for different benefits, such as getting more health potions, or getting more max health, or more energy, and so forth. You also get a little drone that follows you around about midway through the game, which is kind of like the gun mechanic from Bloodborne. You can use it to attract enemies, and there's all sorts of different modifications you can make, such as being able to stun enemies with it, and so forth. It's really cool. From a sound perspective, this game is alright. It certainly sounds sci-fi, and all the weapons have a very nice satisfying feel to them. But I really dislike that the game has a lack of meaningful background music. It's just very quiet. Graphically, the Surge is decent. It looks kind of like Dead Space in a lot of ways, and all the enemies and locations look fairly great, and they do a fantastic job of ensuring that each new area you go to has a completely different look and feel to it than the rest. There is a pretty big performance drop in some of the later levels, which makes me think that the game maybe missed a little bit of polish towards the end. Overall, the Surge is a great value at $40. You get 15 plus hours of gameplay with satisfying combat and an excellent sci-fi setting. I would highly recommend this game to anyone who likes Souls games. The Surge gets an 8 out of 10.